Welcome back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we talk about the 10 best horror movies you can watch right now on HBO Max. Alright, so I understand the struggle of trying to decide with HBO Max right now if it's worth the money because you're wanting to see these new movies that are coming straight to HBO Max, and it's the only way to see them, like the Snyder Cut, etc. But I'm here to tell you that it also has a lot of really great horror movies, especially some of the greatest classics of all time. So I'm just going to run down a list of 10 of some of the best things that I think you can currently watch right now on HBO Max. Alright, so kicking off this list is Lovecraft Country.
It's about my father and the secret birthright that's been kept from us. You going after it. We're gonna need a car.
You just gonna stand there, Tick?
This is family business. And families stay together.
So it is my favorite series from last year. It is amazing. And there's actually a few other really great series that are on HBO right now. So in my opinion, it does have a plethora of things as far as series and documentaries and things like that go. This series alone, in my opinion, makes it worth getting the HBO Max subscription, even if it's just to binge through this series, because I enjoyed it that much. It does deal with a lot of cultural strife because of when this movie takes place in the 1950s. There's a lot of race wars and things along those lines. It does lean a lot into that, but it also is just this amazing Indiana Jones adventure, monsters, magic. So yes, it might have a lot of these social commentaries and things like that, and if you're tired of hearing about that stuff or talking about that stuff or whatever, then maybe this isn't for you. But for me, I really enjoyed and respected what they were trying to say, like morally and things along those lines, but as well as these just powerful characters. So even though it does deal with those deep, heavy issues, to me, I never stopped having fun and enjoying the adventure as well. To me, it's balanced extremely well, and it goes that way from beginning to end. It's just an absolute fantastic ride and a series that I highly recommend.
This is our family story.
Alright, next would be the 2020 version of Invisible Man.
Adrian. He was a sociopath. He said that I could never leave him. He controlled how I looked and what I wore. Then it was controlling when I left the house. And eventually, what I thought.
And this was one of my favorite movies from last year. It even made it into my top 10 of 2020. But this movie is just slick. It takes all the interesting stuff from the original Invisible Man and then injects this high-tech, high science level technology into it. And so it has this feel of almost like the original Invisible Man meets a movie like Upgrade, which is also a great movie that was done also by Leigh Whannell. But this movie is so surprising and just seriously a high-tech, intelligent horror movie that I highly recommend.
Let me help you.
You can't help me. Surprise.
Next up is the 2009 Friday the 13th.
Here we are. Pretty nice, huh?
This is the most recent Friday the 13th movie we have received, and that's a shame because everybody in the horror industry is dying for a new Friday the 13th, but I still absolutely love this movie. I think it's got flaws and it's not perfect by any means, but you could say that about every Friday the 13th movie. But I thought it was just really well done. I really liked this version of Jason. He's a serious badass. I just like the pacing of it. It's just a fun Friday the 13th movie. And I also want to mention that Freddy vs. Jason is also available on HBO Max. So if you're a big fan of Friday the 13th, I got you covered there as well.
His name was Jason, and today is his birthday.
Next up is one of the most fun movies from last year, and that is a movie called Becky.
What happened by your fort, Becky?
And this little girl is savage as fuck. And this is a revenge film, but to a different tune, so to speak. Because this little girl is everything and more that you expect from a revenge movie. Because she just goes ballistic on these guys. But there's just a lot of fun in this movie. Kevin James is just terrifying in it and very different than anything you've ever seen him do before. And I'm a fan of his, but I'm really a fan of his in this movie. This movie is gory and just gritty, but also just a lot of fun, and it never takes things too serious. It does have fun with it, which is a lot of what makes this movie enjoyable to me. And even though it does go for the jugular, so to speak, and it does kill people that you are invested in and whatnot, it still finds a way to stay fun and energetic and just exciting and just a great little movie.
I don't want to have to hurt you.
But I do want to hurt you real bad.
Next up is Alien.
You're going out there to destroy them, right? Not to study, not to bring back, but to wipe them out.
That's the plan.
And everybody knows Alien is probably the greatest sci-fi movie, or at least one of the greatest sci-fi movies ever. But it also is very much a horror movie that I think some people kind of forget, because the original is very much a slasher film. It has a lot of the same pacing, a lot of the same elements that you'll see in a traditional slasher. But I just wanted to mention it, not because I'm thinking you haven't seen it, because I'm not. I am assuming everybody has seen it. But if you're a fan of Alien, you could binge Alien stuff until you basically are blue in the face, fall asleep, whatever, however you want to put it. Because it has Aliens and Alien 3 and Resurrection, Alien vs. Predator. I mean, it's got everything. I think it even has Covenant on it. I mean, it's got you covered if you're a fan of Alien.
Aliens. This time, it's war.
Okay, now we go to what is arguably the greatest werewolf movie ever made, and that's American Werewolf in London. And once again, this is a movie that I'm assuming you've seen if you're a big horror fan, but I think it's a great rewatch. It's one of those movies that every so often, probably once a year or at least every other year, I love to sit down and watch this movie. So if you're wanting to binge some classics or whatever, just wanted to let you know that it is available on HBO. And like I say in the title of this is my top 10 movies that are on HBO Max. And if I'm saying top 10, I had to mention American Werewolf in London. It's just an absolute masterpiece, and still to this day has the most amazing transformation scene of any werewolf movie. Especially when you realize that this is all done practically with different prosthetics and things. It's just a breathtaking scene. But this is just a legendary movie that still holds up and it's still a lot of fun. So if you haven't watched it recently, I recommend a rewatch. Definitely check it out while it's on HBO Max. All right, now we go to The Exorcist.
Nobody expected it.
Let's see what
Nobody believed it. And nothing could stop it.
And once again, I'm assuming you've seen The Exorcist. But like with Alien and with American Werewolf in London, it's nice sometimes to rewatch these legendary movies. And while you have a chance to watch all these great legendary movies, they're all together on one platform. But this is a movie that still holds up to this day. It's just masterfully done, well written, enjoyable characters, flushed out in just the most beautiful, like elegant, amazing way. There's just so many things that are interesting about this movie. So what I'll do a lot of times, if I have already seen a classic like the last couple I've mentioned, what I'll do is I'll go read up on it, or I'll go watch some documentary stuff on it, and then rewatch it. And it's a lot of fun. I did that with a lot of movies this year, including Jaws. And it's like almost watching it again for the first time, because now you know these little hidden gems and Easter eggs and these different things that you wouldn't have necessarily thought of or paid attention to before, but now knowing it just makes it that much more fun. So that's also something I recommend if you're looking to watch one of these classics, even though you've seen it a few times. That's a way to just keep it fresh and fun.
The one hope, the only hope, The Exorcist.
Next up is the film It, Chapter 1 and 2.
When you're a kid, you think the universe revolves around you. You think that you'll always be protected and cared for. Then, one day, you realize that's not true.
Even if you've seen it, it's a lot of fun to watch these movies back to back. I just recently did that, and it was so amazing how many little things that I had forgotten or just didn't even really put together until I had watched the movies one consecutive, like one back to back to each other.
What?
But it's just a lot of fun to do. And this movie, man, it just doesn't get old, especially if it's been a little bit since you've seen it. Like in my case, I hadn't rewatched it since I saw it in theaters, at least the second one. And I just enjoyed it so much all over again. I mean, Pennywise is just such a blast to watch. There's just so many things about his character and how Skarsgård pulls it off that it's just a great movie that I could not do this list without putting on there, because, I mean, for all its flaws, I know they're not perfect movies, but I still love these characters and love these movies. All right, next up is Kong Skull Island.
When the sun refused to shine.
Is that a monkey?
And if you're like me, you're extremely excited about Godzilla vs. Kong, which is coming up at the end of this month. So you're priming and getting yourself ready. This to me was actually why I got HBO in the first place this month, because I wanted to get caught up on that whole thing so I could be as excited as possible going in. So Kong Skull Island, as well as Godzilla King of Monsters, are both available on HBO Max. And I just got finished watching both of them just this last week, so that I was all primed up and ready to go for the end of this month when Godzilla vs. Kong comes out. And I had actually forgotten how much I loved Kong Skull Island. This movie is beautifully done, and there's so many fun little things in it. It's just a really fun little ride that I was so glad I rewatched. I just think having it fresh in your brain going in is the best way to do it. It just gets you really pumped up for the movie. It's just another reason that I highly recommend, at least for this month, getting HBO Max. Next up is one of my favorite movies of all time, and that would be The Lost Boys.
Notice anything unusual about Santa Carla yet?
No. It's a pretty cool place. If you're a Martian.
Or a vampire.
And to me, this is the perfect example of fun horror, because it has some freaky, scary kind of moments, but it is just overall just that really fun, epic adventure with the boys, so it's almost got a Stand By Me, Goonies feel to it, but then it still has the vampire creepiness and the lore of that. It has some of the coolest, if not the coolest vampires ever done. They're that perfect balance because they're not too cool and sexy like the stupid Twilight stuff, but they're not completely awful and horrible like 30 Days a Night. They're just that really cool balance where they're cool and you can see how they would seduce people, so to speak, but yet still be vicious and rip you apart. I just love them, and I highly recommend checking it out again because I'm sure you've seen it, but this movie is a great rewatch. I actually this summer went and saw it at the drive-ins, and it was just as fun as it had ever been for me to watch it. It had been a couple years since I had rewatched it, and it is just a very, very fun movie. Like for me, this movie is extremely nostalgic, and it takes me back to being a boy. I can't stop raving about Lost Boys. It's just one of my favorite movies. But that's my list for today, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'd love to see down below what your list would be. If you have HBO, what are the movies that you recommend from it? And I'd appreciate it if you could do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and ding that little bell, because that is the best way to keep track of this channel and when I post videos like this. And I try to post videos like this at least 2 times every week. I also want to give a huge thank you to my patrons because your support seriously means so much to me. And if you would like to find out more about becoming a patron, the link is down in the description. And like always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember, horror can be fun. I will see you guys next time.